Hello and welcome. My name is Natty Cash, and welcome once again to another part in the Ultimate March Madness Tournament. Thank you so much for watching. So far, this is already 17 videos into this series. Thank you for all your patience for the months that it's taken me to do this. But this is a very exciting video, and I'm about to tell you why. This is so exciting because today we are doing the last regional bracket so that we can determine that final spot you see in the bottom right corner of who is going to be in this Sweet 16 of teams. We have 15 teams sitting here waiting to see who will be that 16th team, and then we can determine who our final ultimate March Madness tournament champion will be. So let's jump right into it. Let's take a look at the Rust Belt region and see what teams are in that region. Now, some of you, as we take a look at this Rust Belt region, may already be able to predict what teams are going to be in this region because this is the last region, and we have every Divisional I team in this entire series. So if they haven't shown up yet, they should be here. You just may not know where they're going to be seated. So let's take a look at that right now. Our number one seed out of the Rust Belt region is the Purdue Boilermakers with a 34-5 record. That was best to be top of the Big Ten region in league play. They unfortunately had lost out in overtime to Wisconsin in the conference tournament, but Purdue sitting at a number one seed. Can they use that to their advantage to make the Sweet 16 in this tournament style? We'll see. They have to wait for their counterpart for the 16th seed, which will be a play-in game between the Cal State Bakersfield Roadrunners and the San Diego Toreros. The Roadrunners, a 13-19 record out of the Big Sky region, good enough for 8th in that league, up against the 18-15 Toreros from San Diego. From the West Coast Conference, that record was good enough for 5th in that West Coast Conference league play. Now you take a look at the 9 seed, and the 9 seed will be filled by North Carolina Greensboro, the Spartans, with a 21-11 record out of the Southern Conference. That was good enough for 2nd in their conference league play. They had unfortunately had an early exit in their conference tournament, but let's see what they can do here now in a 9 seed position. They are awaiting their opponent. They will have to play their opponent, which will be the Oakland Golden Grizzlies, a 24-12 record team out of the Horizon League, were first in the Horizon League and took that strong position, won all of their games to become conference champions out of the Horizon League. So a strong opponent here in the Golden Grizzlies sitting in that 8th seed. Then we have our number 5 seed, which is the Washington Huskies out of the Pac-12, 17-15 record, good enough for 8th in their league. See what they can do in a fifth seed position. They are awaiting a 12 seed, which will be either the Eastern Michigan Eagles out of the MAC region, 13-18 record, only 10th in the MAC region, but they are up against Gardner-Webb, the Running Bulldogs, with a 17-16 record out of the Big South. We'll see what they can do sitting in that 3rd position, or 3rd in their league in the Big South. They are awaiting to see if they can fill in that 12th seed position. The next play-in game is going to be between the DePaul Blue Demons out of the Big East, a dismal 3-29 record last year, with 11th, good enough for 11th in the Big East. We'll see what they can do up against LaSalle out of the Atlantic 10, 16-17 record. That was still only good enough for 10th in the Atlantic 10. That's a tough matchup to see there. Whoever wins that game will have to play the number 4 seed, which will be the NC State, North Carolina State Wolfpack, a 26-15 record out of the ACC. That was only good enough for 10th in the league, but as you may know, they won against Louisville, against Syracuse, against Duke, at overtime against Virginia and against North Carolina to become ACC conference champions. So a strong representative sitting in that number 4 seed. Then we take a look at the bottom half of the bracket, and we see our number 3 seed going to be the Colorado State Rams, a 25-11 record out of the Mountain West. That was only good enough for 7th in their region, but they did beat number 2 Nevada in their conference tournament. So we'll see how they can do sitting in a strong number 3 ranked position. Then they have a play-in game awaiting for the 14th seed, which will be between the Western Michigan Broncos and the Georgia State Panthers. The Broncos with a 12-20 record out of the MAC region, good enough for 6th in that conference, up against Georgia State. The Panthers from the Sun Belt, a 14-17 record, good enough for 7th. They are in that 14th seed play-in game. Then we look at the 11th seed play-in game, which will be between the Southeast Missouri State Redhawks out of the Ohio Valley Conference. They have a 9-22 record, only good enough for 10th in the Ohio Valley, but we'll see what they can do up against the North Carolina Asheville Bulldogs. 22-12 record out of the Big South, good enough for 2nd in the Big South. Did go all the way to the conference championship game, but did lose out to Longwood in the end. So what can Asheville do now with New Life sitting in that play-in position for number 11 seed? Then we have the number 6 seed, which is the LSU Tigers, 17-16 record out of a strong SEC, only good enough for 8th. So we'll see what they can do now sitting in a number 6 seed. The number 7 seed will be the Miami Hurricanes, 15-17 record from the ACC, towards the bottom of the ACC and 14th, but we'll see what they can do sitting in that number 7 seed. They await a matchup, which is a play-in game for the number 10 seed, which will be between the Stonehill Skyhawks of the Northeast Conference and the Bobcats of Quinnipiac. Okay, the Skyhawks, 4-27 record, not that great, lowest in the Northeast Conference. And then the Quinnipiac Bobcats, 24-10 record. That was good enough for 1st in the Metro Athletic Conference. But they lost out to St. Peter's in their conference tournament. So what can they do in redemption here? We have a 15-seed play-in game, which is between the Utah Tech Trailblazers out of the WAC region, 11-20 record, good enough for 9th in that region, up against the Green Bay Phoenix, 18-14 record in the Horizon League, good enough for 3rd in that league. They had lost out early in their conference tournament. Can they bounce back here? Finally, our last team to be called in the entire tournament in our number 2 seed is the St. John's Red Storm, a 20-13 record. That was good enough for 5th in the Big East. Let's see what they can do sitting in the number 2 seed. So take a look at our last regional bracket left to determine here. I believe we have not missed any of our Division I programs here. If you feel like that's been the case, well, go back to some of the other videos and confirm, but I believe these are all the last teams that have yet to be mentioned that are representing the Rust Belt region. So with one game at a time, we will go one game at a time and determine who is the winner of this Rust Belt region. Starting with our play-in games of Cal State Bakersfield, the Roadrunners up against the San Diego Toreros. And we do see San Diego with the victory here. A close game to start off with, where a few lead changes, but at halftime San Diego is up by about 3, but then the Toreros were able to take off in the second half, and with some defensive stops were allowed to then build a lead enough to have a comfortable victory to win their first matchup. So San Diego, with their victory, will have a game up against the number 1 seed Purdue in their next matchup. Next up, we have a 12 seed play-in game, which is between the Eastern Michigan Eagles and the Gardner-Webb Running Bulldogs. And we do have the Running Bulldogs with a victory here. They took a lead early on and had a modest lead for most of the game. They had an 8-point lead at around halftime and kind of kept that around that point and eventually won by 16 points in the end. So Gardner-Webb is moving forward. And so Gardner-Webb moves forward into a matchup against the Washington Huskies in their next game. Then we have another play-in game, DePaul Blue Demons up against the LaSalle Explorers. And it is the DePaul Blue Demons that get the victory. You see them leading early and really holding on to that lead throughout the entire game. Got to within 3 towards the end of the second half, but it was not enough. DePaul gets the victory here and moves forward to the next round. So with that, DePaul move into the 13 seed in this region. They will be playing NC State in their next matchup. So then we move along to the bottom of the bracket, and our next play-in game is the Western Michigan Broncos up against the Georgia State Panthers. And this game was a tight one. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I've ever seen it represent final score being an overtime score. And so correct me if I'm wrong if I didn't notice that before, but this went to overtime. So looks like many lead changes throughout. Western Michigan leading by about 7 at halftime, but then probably right in here, I don't know where exactly, right in here where we had a tie game right before then in the overtime period where Western Michigan take control and get a 9-point victory. Wow, I've never seen that before until this point. Again, if you see it in some of my previous videos, please let me know. And so Western Michigan move forward. They will be playing Colorado State in their next matchup. Now we have an 11 seed play-in game between the Southeast Missouri State Redhawks and the UNC Asheville Bulldogs. And this was a close one, but it is UNC Asheville that get the victory here. Back and forth game, many lead changes. About halftime, it was Missouri State that was up and could have been up by even by 9, but maybe at halftime, maybe only up by 4. Then UNC Asheville takes the lead. The couple times where there was a tie, but UNC Asheville had just enough to get a 3-point victory. They are moving on to the next round. So it is the Bulldogs of UNC Asheville that are our 11th seed. They will be awaiting LSU in their next matchup. Then we have the number 10 seed play-in game, which will be between the Stonehill Skyhawks and the Quinnipiac Bobcats. And it is the Bobcats that get the victory here. They take a lead early, and even though Stonehill to get to within 2, by halftime, Quinnipiac were up by about 7 and then built onto that lead on their way to a relatively comfortable victory. So it is the Quinnipiac Bobcats that move on. They will be playing Miami Hurricanes in the next matchup. Then we have our 15 seed play-in, our last play-in to resolve in the entire tournament. It'll be the Utah Tech Trailblazers up against the Green Bay Phoenix. And it is the Phoenix that get the victory here. A few lead changes in the first half, and it is Utah Tech that are up by about 2 at halftime. But a large offensive surge by Green Bay and not one to follow from Utah Tech allows the Phoenix to get their victory and move to the next round. Okay, with all the play-in games done, we have the last field of 16 in a region to narrow down. You see them on the board there. We are starting off with the top matchup, which will be the Purdue Boilermakers up against the San Diego Toreros. And it is the Boilermakers that take care of the Toreros handily. They take the lead early on, and never look back on the way to a comfortable first round victory. So Purdue move into the next round. They will await their next matchup, which will be either the UNC Greensboro Spartans or the Oakland Golden Grizzlies. And it is the Golden Grizzlies from Oakland that get the victory here. It was UNC Greensboro that were leading for the entire first half, up by 4 at about halftime. But Oakland was able to then find more offensive punch and be able to get a 14-point victory to move to the next round. So Oakland move forward to play Purdue in the next round. Next up, we have the Washington Huskies up against the Gardner-Webb Running Bulldogs. And we see here the Huskies do get the victory here. It took them a while to get going as they had a small lead but couldn't really hold on to it. But by halftime, they are up by 11 and never looked back on the way to a comfortable first victory. So it is the Huskies that move forward. They await their next opponent, which will be either the DePaul Blue Demons or the Wolfpack from North Carolina State. And DePaul get the upset victory here, a 3-point victory. And it's also a case where they are leading nearly the entire game. About a 7-point lead at halftime. That does narrow down to as close as 2 points, but NC State could never get over the bubble and get the lead from DePaul. And DePaul gets a 3-point upset victory. Wow. So it is DePaul moving into the regional quarterfinals and will face the Washington Huskies in their next matchup. Now we move further down and we have the Colorado State Rams up against the Western Michigan Broncos. And we have yet another upset. It is the Broncos from Western Michigan that beat Colorado State. And again, a scenario where the underdog was leading nearly the entire time. At halftime, Western Michigan was up by 12, probably their biggest lead throughout, maybe up by 15 in the second half, but there was nothing that Colorado State could do to close the gap smaller than like 5 points, and Western Michigan get an upset victory. And so we see Western Michigan moving into a regional quarterfinal. They will be awaiting their next opponent. Will it be another upset? We've got 2 already. Will we get more? Could we see an upset between UNC Asheville Bulldogs and the LSU Tigers? And we do have a return to the norm here as LSU do get the victory. They had a slower time going with it, or at least UNC Asheville were keeping pace, but then LSU continued their offensive trail here, and the Bulldogs could not keep up, allowing LSU to take a comfortable 22-point victory. And we see LSU moving into the regional quarterfinal will face Western Michigan in their next matchup. Further down, we have the Miami Hurricanes up against the Quinnipiac Bobcats. And we do see the Hurricanes getting the victory here. They led nearly the entire time, but had about a 9-point lead at halftime, built up that a little bit, but then a long stretch by the Bobcats tried to bring the game closer, but it was too little too late, and the Hurricanes get the victory. So with Miami moving forward, we have one last matchup before we start our quarterfinals. It'll be the Green Bay Phoenix up against the number 2 seed St. John's Red Storm. And we do have a win by St. John's. I don't know why we don't have the breakdown throughout the game here. I think that's a kind of a glitch with this matchup. And there's no image for St. John's either. I'm not sure why that's the case, but it is St. John's that get the victory here, a 5-point victory to move to the next round. So St. John's moves forward, and now we have a quarterfinal set. Will we have more upsets to come? Let's see. Starting off with, we will see the Purdue Boilermakers up against the Oakland Golden Grizzlies. This was a close one, but it is Purdue that get the victory here. Oakland took a lead early, and after a few lead changes, Purdue was up by about 4 points. However, at that point, Purdue held on to the lead, even though a small one, and ended up getting a 5-point victory to move to the next round. So we do have Purdue moving on to a regional semifinal. Their next opponent, which will be either the Washington Huskies or the Blue Demons from DePaul. And once again, it is DePaul that get a victory here. This is incredible. A back and forth first half, and DePaul is maybe up by 2 at the half, but DePaul never gives up the lead in the second half, moving on to a 3-point victory. And I want to state this, is that when I did the intros at the beginning, DePaul had 3 wins in their entire season. They now have 3 wins in this tournament alone. That's crazy. Like, they did not have a great year, but this tournament seems to be their jam, and DePaul are moving on to the next round. So it is DePaul that becomes a regional semifinalist and will play Purdue in their next matchup. Further down, we have the Western Michigan Broncos up against the LSU Tigers. So the run has ended for the Broncos here as LSU take care of business, but it was back and forth. Western Michigan had the lead a couple times, and even at halftime there was maybe a 2-point lead, or maybe it was tied. But LSU had enough to that they kept holding on to the lead throughout, and then finished off with a 6-point victory. So it is the number 6 seed LSU that move on to a regional semifinal. They will be up against either the Miami Hurricane or the St. John's Red Storm. And again, I apologize that there's no breakdown of the game, but St. John's does win handily against the Miami Hurricane to get the victory here. So St. John's moving on to the regional semifinals. And with that, we have our last 4 teams left in the Rust Belt region, with St. John's joining the other semifinalists. So let's see who is going to be in our Rust Belt region finals. Is it going to be the Purdue Boilermakers, or is it the DePaul Blue Demons? And how has this happened again? DePaul and the Blue Demons have won again. You see here, they led the entire time. Purdue could never come back and win this one, and they won by 13 points. And I wanted to check to see, is there a problem here? But if you look here, as it should be, Purdue win this matchup more often than not when it's been simulated 53 times. And many times they win by more than 20 points. But DePaul has had enough of a chance where then they won, and this time they did win, and they are moving to our regional finals. And so we see DePaul, one of our 2 finalists in the Rust Belt region. Their next opponent will be either the LSU Tigers or the St. John's Red Storm. And we see an upset here. It is LSU that get the victory here. A significant 30-point victory here. Immense here. And again, I apologize. I don't know what's going on with St. John's, and their graph doesn't show. But LSU getting the win, moving on to our regional finals. This has got to be one of the crazier brackets that we've seen. We have a 13 seed up against a number 6 seed. Whoever wins this becomes the Rust Belt region champion. We've only had one other 6 seed team move forward, and that was Boston College. And we've never seen a double-digit team win a region. So whatever happens here, this was never what I thought this bracket could turn into. But here we are. Will we see DePaul, the Blue Demons, as the Rust Belt region champion, or will the champion be the LSU Tigers? And there you have it, everyone. It is the Blue Demons, DePaul Blue Demons, who are our Rust Belt region champions. This is insane. Based on, most of the simulations I've seen in this is the first time I've seen a really, low-ranked team do so well. DePaul beats LSU significantly, right? They never really were losing and went on to win the entire region. That is insane. And there we have it. DePaul, the Blue Demons, are the Rust Belt champions, and they are a part of our Sweet 16 teams. That is incredible. For sure, they are the Cinderella team that is seen here, with them being a 13 seed to get all the way to this point. Just incredible. So, here you have it. The top 16 teams. The Sweet 16 is set. And we have one last thing to do. We are taking these last 16 teams and we are going to narrow them down to figure out who is the Ultimate March Madness Tournament champion. We are going to do that in our next video. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. And very soon, I might even put this out earlier than I normally would. Very soon, you will find out who the champion is of our Ultimate March Madness Tournament. Please like and subscribe. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time.